I said, and as Mr. Jenkins mentioned, I graduated from Howard University. I entered in '86. By 1990, there was a group of us very much involved in hip hop. Howard, if you're familiar with it at all, if you have relatives, it's in Washington, D.C., but the largest number of students there are from New York. And at that time, everybody wanted to be from New York. Even the people who weren't acted like, changed their accents because New York was the, was the place to be from. So hip hop at that time, again, imagine late 80s, early 90s, was not the hip hop that we know today. Right now, hip hop is global. And it was just about being global, late 80s. Right now, hip-hop is the dominant youth popular culture today in the States and beyond. In the late 80s, it was getting to that, slowly, right? So we had, in the late 80s, now wait, that makes, in late 80s, how old were you all? I got to put this in context. Let me back up. Late 80s, 80, let me see, 89. 16, some of you just born? You were just how old? You were born in 89. Okay. 1, 2, 4, 7, 6, okay, 16. Okay. Okay, so, but when you're 7 years old, you know what's playing on the radio, right? You can remember those. I remember the songs from when I was 7. Rock the Boat. Well, that's okay. I'm not going to go there. But anyway, in late 80s, which is around 1989, 90, we were at Howard very much into Black Power because we had as our backdrop Public Enemy, right? We had KRS-One, Public Enemy, X-Clan, Poor Righteous Teachers. Does any of that sound familiar? I'm not talking too far over, right? Okay. So that was our backdrop. So we studied our exams with Fight the Power in the background, right? So hip hop was this rebel music, and I mean rebel in a positive way, not in whatever negative connotation society might put on it, but rebel music, and it spoke to us because we had people that looked like us that weren't that much older talking about Black political figures and giving us people to point to in our music that we could hear on the radio, and that was our dynamic time, right? That was our coming of age, where we could turn on the radio and see Black men and Black women being strong, connected, and unashamed and unapologetically connected to legacy. So we took that, bottled it up, organized, and decided to put forward a conference. Now that is significant because we at Howard University, which has a reputation, and I can say it because it's true, but I just happen to know other sides, of being very uppity, very, some of the students are obnoxious, just like really detached, and something as grimy and street level and whatever as hip hop wasn't supposed to match or be the element at Howard, right? So we were exactly that element, me and some other students, and we organized the conference, and it was significant because at that time, the only people coming together for Black music in a conference setting where you can network with professionals and learn and so forth was a conference called Jack the Rapper. Does that sound familiar? That was a high-end professional conference, and the tickets cost $300 and up just to attend, and you only knew about it if you worked at a record label or at a magazine or something like that. So here we are, bold, and nobody can tell us anything. We wanted to have a conference to not only showcase this thing that people hated called hip-hop, but to show that it had a redemptive quality to it, that it had that you can glean from it positivity and use it as a tool for social change, that it could be an organizing tool, that Public Enemy had something of value to say and we should listen and we should organize around it. And we should talk about the fact that you had Black artists creating this music, this culture that everybody was gravitating toward but didn't quite understand and wanted to be down with, but we didn't own it. We didn't own the record labels. We didn't own the clothes that the artists wore. We weren't in charge of the promotions, or we worked the promotions, but we weren't in charge of directing the marketing or what have you. And we certainly weren't in charge of distribution. Now, that's changed slightly, but not fundamentally. We are still creating art that other people own and distribute throughout the world that we have to in turn ask for. So we were of the mindset that that just didn't make sense, and we needed to come together, not only as college students, but we wanted to call the professionals into town, and we wanted to invite the community and the high school students and the junior high school students so that we can have a real collective community-based conversation about what was going on with our culture, since we didn't control it and everybody was trying to be down with us and didn't understand it. So that was significant. Now, it was significant because it had never happened before. No one ever said, stop, wait a minute, I got something to say about NWA. So before Don Imus, what was that, 2007? Before he got up and said, you know, what he said about Black women, and then later turned that into, that is hip hop's fault because we don't check ourselves. Before that, there were people always, there's always a self-checking mechanism in the community. There's always someone pulling for as much righteousness as we can get out of ourselves as possible. And that was us, even at your age and a little bit older. So I bring that up because we were students that didn't ask for permission to do that. We asked for guidance, but we didn't ask for permission. Someone came to us with the idea, but we took it, molded it, made it our own, and that conference went on for 6 years at Howard. And I say that this is important because we had a specific mission. Now, we intellectualized and we talked and we had panels, and it was a 3-day conference, and we made sure that it was inclusive, but we had parties and we had showcases. As a matter of fact, the artist that I know some of you love today, before he changed his name, his first artist showcase was at that student-run, hint, student-run, people your age, student-conceived conference at Howard. Now, today he's known as Common. Prior to being Common, he was Common Sense. Prior to Busta Rhymes being Busta Rhymes, the solo artist, he was who? He was a part of what group? Does anybody? I hear it. Leaders of the New School, right. So all of them were who we brought. Now, I know him as Puff, now, but I know he had, what is he, Diddy now, and all kind of name changes. He was at school with us as well at Howard, you know, during that time. And the lawyers who are running the entertainment industry now were fellow students at Howard, specifically during that time. They got their understandings of how to work in the business, how to talk to people professionally, how to say, not accept no because you're going to make it a yes. All those kinds of things were groomed at Howard during this particular time. But I only bring that up not to big up the university, but to big up the innovative thinking and the you can't tell me I can't do this kind of thinking from people your age and just a little bit older. So that's significant not just for that reason, but it went on for 6 years. It changed the face of how people perceived hip hop, and that's what we intended to do. We wanted people to stop criminalizing this art form because we knew that it had something more, another level of righteousness that the media wasn't going to talk about, let alone amplify. So it's also significant, but now because you can get a degree in hip hop studies. Did you all know that? You can get a degree in hip hop studies. As a matter of fact, the very institution that told, well, I have to, let me be fair and let me be honest. We didn't catch too much resistance from doing the conference. It was just a matter of renting rooms and having and organizing it in a 3-day format. So we didn't have a whole bunch of resistance logistically. But the mindset of the institution was like, I don't know what this is about. I don't like it. What is this gangster rap? Logistically, we didn't have a problem, but now, and I don't even know, I should know the names of the universities, but you can go to Temple, you can go to some schools on the West Coast, you can even go to Howard, and in about a year or two get a minor in hip-hop studies, ironically, that by people who are not of the culture. Like, there's an academic approach to hip-hop, right? That you can find books all day long that will tell you wrong things about the facts, because anybody can intellectualize and study in a book and tell you what they think it is or what they read in another book as opposed to them experiencing the culture. But you can get a degree in it. But that's important to say, I feel, because that was initiated, this whole connection between hip-hop and the classroom, hip-hop as a tool for social change, hip-hop in the academy, and, a professor of hip-hop studies, because some 18, 19, and 20-year-olds said, I think that there's something deeper than this, and we want to begin a discussion on how to control and direct our own culture. So that's what taking something from the past could look like. Before you even know it, you're leaving legacy. And you're not even an ancestor yet. Before you even know it, people are gravitating to what it is that you woke up and believed one day and made it concrete. And I think that's an important, hopefully, an important thing for you to take away, because one of the platforms that we have at Aquila Work Songs is arts and activism. We don't have the belief that art exists for the sake of art. Not to a people of color community, and especially not to an African American community. Art is functional. It has a purpose. It is wonderful to gaze at the sun and the moon and the stars, and we should be able to do that because we are human beings. We are made of beauty. We gravitate toward beauty, and it's important for us to connect to that, even as the world erodes us. But because the world can be erosive, because as people of color, particularly African American people and students, that racism exists, and particularly because we are women living in the world that seeks to serve men, and every institution in society ultimately is designed to benefit the dominance of men. So which means, and that's what patriarchy is, right? Remember we talked about words that we know how to use in context, but how do you break it down?